Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, where ordinary heroes tell extraordinary stories during unique and never been heard before conversations with your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Hilary's unique listening and way of asking questions results in conversations that aren't usually talked about, so you can create the life that you really want but are afraid you can't really have. We are demonstrating the greatness in the human spirit and creating a world where we all reclaim our birthright of joy, happiness, purpose, and passion. Now, here's your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, and today we have a very special guest. This conversation is one you're not going to want to miss. So today I bring you Ellie Weisensel, who is a medical intuitive and energy healer. And I was introduced to Ellie through one of our mutual friends. So with that, I want to welcome Ellie Weisensel. Hello.
Hi, Hilary, and everybody who's going to be listening. Welcome aboard. So happy to be here today.
Yes. All right. So we're going to briefly fly through Ellie's childhood. All I know really is that she was born in Wisconsin. And did you have brothers and sisters?
I do have one sister and three brothers, and a mother who raised us on her own, and we were a very small family. Ancestry goes back to Norway, so my mother was 100% Norwegian, and I consider myself 100% as well. So,
Okay.
but I've lived in Wisconsin my entire life.
Wow. Okay. Do we want to ask about that father or no?
No, we can leave him out of the picture.
Okay. His whatever doesn't count. All right, good. All right. So God bless your mother for raising you kids, right? What did your mom do?
She actually was a teacher. She was a
Oh.
teacher, and she did a fabulous job raising five kids on her own, because back in the day she could have given us to social services and be done with us. So yeah, so very
Five
much
kids.
kudos to her.
Yeah. What did she teach?
Fifth grade. She, for the most part, was fifth grade, sometimes fourth and fifth, sometimes fifth and sixth. Always depended upon how many kids were in the classrooms each year, how that
Mhm.
fluctuates a little bit. But for the most part, she taught fifth grade.
Wow. Awesome. Okay. And I bet she was a great teacher. Otherwise, she
Well,
wouldn't
she
have had so
was.
many kids, right? My mother, too, had five kids, and she was the best teacher. She got
Yes.
all the patients. I got none. She's like the best. And I'm like, just take those kids away, even though I had to. Take them away because something bad's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So,
Yep.
okay. So you went through Wisconsin. Did you go to school out there? Did you go to college?
I did go through high school. My entire life has been here. I worked 2 years for a federal agency on the border, on the Canadian border, but I still owned my house in Wisconsin, so I never left the residency here. I just
Hmm.
traveled back and forth all the time. But I did go through high school here in a small town, and then I went and got an associate's degree, and then I went back and got my bachelor's degree. And that was all
In
done
what?
here. Bachelor's degree.
Yeah. In what? What did you
Oh, in
study?
it was the associate's degree was food science, and then the
Hmm.
bachelor's quality and productivity management on the scientific side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. And then, so you graduated college, and then I know we're gonna go to only back the last 12 years, but just to see what you were doing up until then. You were
Oh,
working.
I was before I went back to get my associate's degree. I From high school to that point, I had gotten married, had two of my own kids. Started seeing the marriage wasn't working out, wasn't going to last. So I went back and got the associate's degree to have something to fall back on, to make sure I
Mhm.
had a decent income, because I ended up getting divorced. And then I went back and got the bachelor's degree. So then I ended up raising my two kids on my own. And that's why my mother was so instrumental, because if she raised five, I could handle two. Um, So I raised 2 kids, and then in the meantime, got into a federal agency working for a federal division, and then did a little bit of traveling with that, and then it's pretty much what it took me up to until I started getting into the spiritual side. So once I got divorced, I went into work for a federal agency that did. I ended up doing a lot of traveling in that, and I just raised my own 2 kids on my own. Um, Things didn't shift or drive for me as far as, when you talk to some people, they say, oh, I saw spirit my whole life. I saw them when I was 2 years old and things like that. That never happened for me. My door didn't open up till about 12 years ago when I had
Okay.
something dramatic happen in my life that opened those doors up. So my childhood was what I would consider pretty normal, even
Mm-hmm.
though I was raised by a single mother. It's pretty normal childhood.
Okay. So, all right. So, why don't we go to the 12 years ago? What the heck happened?
Um, I was divorced back in '95, and so I would date somebody on and off, but it never really got serious. 12 years ago, I met somebody and dated him, and really thought he was the end all be all, the guy I would spend the rest of my life with. And
Mm-hmm.
in less than a year, he broke it off. Not very nicely either. And I kind of went off the deep end. Um,
Mm.
Now, prior to that, I've always had the love of the other side, the spiritual side. My favorite movie was The Exorcist. And I would drag, that was back in '73, and I would drag my girlfriend to those kinds of movies. She hated it, but she would always go. But then also in 1976, Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical, came out, and I loved that one as well. So you could see the two different extremes that I was kind of enthralled with.
Yeah.
And back in the '70s and '80s, mediumship, to get a mediumship reading, you kind of had to go underground. It wasn't local, it wasn't just out there like it is today. Like you can Google and find one on every street corner. Back then, you couldn't do that. So I was actually going out and meeting people, finding people, going in the underground to get readings and things like that. So I was doing that since the '70s and '80s when it wasn't really heard of. But what happened 12 years ago is when this guy ended it, I kind of went off the deep end because I really thought he was the one I'd spend the rest of my life with. And I went to see a medium to find out what happened or what went wrong that she could see that I wasn't seeing. And she's the one that flat out said, you do know you are a medium. And I looked at it and said, no, I'm not. And she said, yes, you are a medium. You can see, hear, talk, you're a medium, but you keep opening up the door, you get scared and you slam it shut, which made perfect sense to me. And then she went into the guy and started telling me all his dark side to him, and that I was so much better off without him. And he had been a widow for just a couple of months when I met him, and
Mm.
I didn't realize that. I thought she had been gone for a while. And so I went home and I pulled out my pendulum, because I had a pendulum, and I pulled out the pendulum and I said, foolishly, I said, is there anybody out there that wants to talk to me? And sure enough, a spirit came through and she gave me, and I said, are you male or female? She said, a female. I was big on asking for names. And I said, what is your name? And she gave me his dead wife's name. And I'm like, well, this is crap. This is, and so I thought, I knew how old she was. I said, how old are you? And she gave me an age. And I'm like, that's not right, because I knew. And in my head, I heard, look up
The
her
death
obituary.
certificate.
So
Yeah.
I looked it up and I did the math. My number was wrong and hers was right. So I went back to the medium and told her what happened. And she said, this, you're connecting with that guy. His wife was going to open up the door. And that's why you dated him. You weren't meant to live the rest of your life with him. You were meant to open up that door. And you had, in a past life, you had made an agreement for her to open up that door at the right time.
Wow.
So that just totally blew my mind. And it's just like, okay, now I thought I believed. Now I truly believe that there is a spiritual side. And so then I just, every night I'd go home from work and I'd pull out the pendulum and I'd say, is there anybody out there that wants to talk to me? And I started having all these other spirits coming through. And then one night I had this spirit come through and he didn't feel right to me. And I could feel like electricity going through my body. And up to this point, I had no training. I've not taken any classes. I'm just kind of winging this on my own, trying to figure things out. And when I asked him what his name was, he called himself Rat. And I couldn't get rid of him. He was following me every place. I would bump up against people on the street, hoping it would jump from me to them. He wouldn't do it. He would disappear for a little while. I thought things straightened out, and then he'd come back. He was making my life miserable, and I couldn't figure out why. Then I also was getting a headache, and I never get headaches. And so I went in to see my chiropractor after a number of weeks with this headache, asking him to adjust me to get rid of the headache. And he said, oh no, he says, you don't need an adjustment. You're perfectly fine. You're completely how you need to be. You don't need the adjustment. And I'm like, I have this headache. I can't get rid of this headache. And he says, you don't need an adjustment. So I left with the headache, no adjustment, desperate to figure out what was going on. 90 miles south from me was a little store that would have readers, psychic readers, mediumships come in. And on that Saturday, I looked up to see who they were going to have. And they had a medium there. And I read the bio. And the first thing I thought is, she's the one. She's the one I got to go see. So I called up. She had one opening.
Oh my God.
One opening on Saturday. And it's like, it's meant to be. So I took the appointment. That Saturday, I went down to see her. And I walked in and I sat down. And she looked at me and she says, well, what can I help you with? And I just let it all out. She rolled her eyes like, good God, what did this come in with? And so she did the entity releasement on me. And we got talking and she set up some training for me. And I started mentoring under her because she actually got rid of the attachment from me. And so she...
So can I ask you a question? When you said he was following you around and all that, like what was actually happening?
Oh, odds and ends, just things weren't like, one day I got my finger slammed in the door of the car door. And that's not a normal thing for me. Or I would trip over something that's not there. That's not normal.
Wow.
So a lot of things, and the headache was not normal for me. So a lot of little things were happening that was really disrupting my life, causing me problems. And I could always feel this electricity going through my body. And that's not normal for me. So
after you saw the medium and she took away the attachment, that stuff disappeared?
I was driving home and I realized the headache was gone. The headache was gone. And everything started going back into normal, being smooth again. So I had to promise her I wouldn't touch the pendulum until I had the pendulum class. So I had to put it away for a couple of weeks. That was tough. So then she had a class because there was other people asking about the class. And then I took Reiki from her. So I got my level 1, level 2 Reiki through her, and through the teaching of the pendulum and the Reiki and working with her, I then could start doing releasements myself off of other people, animal things, whatever needed to have releasements done with. And so that started consuming my life, but I really didn't want to do the attachments. I really didn't want to do releasements. I wanted to be a medium giving readings, but it wasn't working out that way. And then I finally had...
Yeah. Can you say, now, were you working a full-time job? This was like a side thing?
This was a side thing.
Okay. And when you say releasements, what do you mean? Or are you going to explain that?
Well, what a releasement is when you have an attachment, if you have, there's a number of terms they're called. They're called entities. They're called attachments. They're called spirits from the dark side.
Okay.
Whenever you have one of those and they're attached to you, meaning that they're disrupting your life, they're part of your life, and you can't get rid of it, that's what a releasement is. You're actually
But it,
cutting the cords from the attachment in you and sending it back to source God.
so
Because
is it an energy that attaches? Is it a spirit? Is it a,
spirit.
what is it?
It's a
It's a
spirit, but
spirit.
it's the spirit of not the white light. It's the lower level. So it's a spirit. The spirits from the white light have a very high vibrational energy, and spirits of the
Okay.
low vibrations are the ones that walk the earth. So
Really?
that would be the ones that are lost souls, the darker energies working for the darker side. If you ever heard of the black hat, all of those are ones that walk the earthly plane because their energy is low. And when they cause you problems or issues and you get mad, being mad and angry is a lower energy. It's a low vibration, and that's what they live on.
Wow.
So they cause problems and
So
issues for people and animals that you're feeling that darker energy, that anger, that mad, that hatred, and that's what they live on and that's what they love.
whoa.
Yeah.
So when that's why, like, if something's bad, if some bad things are happening and you get upset, that's when more happens. You've
Yes.
attracted.
Yes.
Ooh,
And
oh,
normally, when you attract in the lower levels, you've got something going on inside of yourself that needs to be healed. You may have a chakra out of alignment or an imbalance within the body, or if you got devastating news, that all brings down your energy
mm.
and your vibration. And then you're proceeding life in a lower vibration.
And that's when these
That's when these can
walking.
come on. Correct.
And then how do you, if you, let's say I don't know you and I never heard this, would it stay there forever? Like if I didn't know someone like you that could detach it? Like,
Pretty
yes? Or
much.
do they
Pretty.
go away by themselves?
Oh, they can go away by themselves. If you start working and raising your own vibration, it may leave you
Oh,
to another host, somebody that's got a lower vibration. So they can leave
okay.
you, but if they're getting what they want from you,
So that's how to get rid of them is to
raise
raise
your
your
vibration.
vibration.
Yes, that is one way. Yes.
So that's like my daughter listens to Abraham Hicks, Esther,
Yes.
and she's always talking about the vibration. But whenever I would listen to that stuff, it would get me worse because I knew I wasn't being high, so I would feel worse about that. And I was like, I can't listen to this. It's not working. It just didn't work for me. It would get me upset.
Well, the high
But now I
vibration the high
yeah.
vibrational spirits, when you're talking about Abraham Hicks and there's other really well-known mediums out there, and if you're talking about source God and all the archangels and that, they all have a very, very high vibration. It is extremely high, and they really have to work to bring their vibration down to come down to meet you. But a lot of times your mediumship readers have a higher vibration, and so they can raise up their vibration for the ones that are coming down to make that connection to do readings.
Wow.
Correct. Yeah. It's
Well,
amazing.
interesting. Yeah. Woo. All right. I interrupted you because we were talking about the dark ones, the walking. Would that be the Walking Dead? I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you think about
All right.
all the wars that's gone on and all the disasters and people who die in hospitals that didn't think they were going to die, they become lost souls and they're just walking the earth. I mean, have you ever heard of like Gettysburg, where they had so much war going on there, and then people who go there actually can see spirits because they didn't know they were killed and they're just walking as if nothing's ever changed for them.
Wow. And how did they get freed? can they? Or they're stuck
They,
there forever?
sometimes they don't know that they're stuck there, and then sometimes they're guided towards somebody that can help them cross. Like just this
Hmm.
morning, I was doing a session on somebody, and I had a spirit come in and interrupt me that wanted help back to source. So once I got done with my session, I brought them back in, and then I helped them cross over. Um, some people become a lighthouse where a light goes off saying, "Hey, she's open. She'll help you cross." And then they come running.
Wow. That's
So,
amazing. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go back to see how you got here. So you had that attachment. She took it away. You did the class, you did the Reiki, you did the pendulum class, and then you were open for business? Like did you
yeah,
still work your job? Like how
I
did
was
you manage all?
I was open for business, but it wasn't like it was not a business where I promoted it. My some
Okay.
very few. I think there's only 3 or 4 people that I worked with knew what I was doing.
Okay.
Um, and then certain family and friends knew, but
And was it
it
weird?
wasn't.
Like was it still weird when you were, I mean, now it's cool. Was it still weird back then or had it gotten okay?
It was still kind of. I didn't come out of the closet, but that was because of my job. I
And what
thought
was your job? What was your job? Were you still
I At that
with
point
the federal?
I was working for the Food and Drug Administration, which is very much science based. They didn't
Okay.
they and I didn't come out of the closet because I didn't want them to know what I was doing, because then they're like, we're science based. What are you doing? And it's like, so I did not create a business at that point. I couldn't create a
Okay.
business because you have to have their permission to do work outside of the agency. So I was just
Oh,
helping family and friends. That's all I was doing, and learning
okay.
how to do it, and working on my techniques and everything. I didn't actually start my business until I retired back in 2020. That's when I finally
Oh,
opened up
okay.
the door and started the business.
Wow. All right. Okay, so there you are. You're working on family and friends. Any
Yep.
good stories from that?
Um, for Okay, so you're still talking about the attachment side?
I don't know. No,
Okay,
wherever you
so
want to go. I mean, I at one point, was looking at being a medium, and I had a friend who was a medium and she tried doing classes and stuff and nothing ever happened. I mean, it didn't feel right to keep going, and I don't know what happened to her. So the fact that you are still going, like that's amazing, because it's something you put your toe in and then you take it out, right?
yep,
Like you before, you were opening it and
and
closing it, right?
yep, yep.
So what
But
had you open it this
mediumship
time?
mediumship actually runs in my family. My grandfather from Norway was a medium, but back in those days, they
Oh,
never talked about it. Both my kids have all the abilities. Neither one want to deal with it, so they still call mom when they want something released, but they both have all the abilities. And out of my 5 grandchildren, 3 of them have hints here and there, but I have the oldest granddaughter and the youngest granddaughter very much have all the abilities.
wow.
So
So when did you when did you find out about your grandfather?
it was after my sister and I took a trip 5 years ago back to Norway. We went back to our heritage and spent 3 weeks back in Norway. And my sister has abilities, but she has nothing to do with it. If she needs help, she calls me too.
So who knew that your grandfather had this? That's wild.
It was just connecting the dots, talking to people and figuring things out, and then doing past life regressions and going into the Akashic records and things like that. It's just putting the dots together. So
What about your mom? Did your mom have any?
we're pretty sure mom had them, but she never talked about it.
Okay.
So back in the day, that wasn't a normal thing to talk about.
Right. You could be like tried as a witch or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bad. Okay. All right, good. So that's really cool. Okay, so it's hereditary. All right. So go ahead, keep going. So you were doing family and friends, and then what?
I was helping family and friends with attachments and kind of honing in on my becoming an expertise with it. There was one weekend where I was babysitting my two granddaughters for my son and his wife because they had gone away for the weekend, and we were on the. They had two couches, kind of like a corner type, and then there was a coffee table in front of the smaller, in front of the bigger couch. And the girls, they were only 1 and 3 or 1 and 4. I think they were ages 1 and 4 at the time. They fell asleep on one couch, and I fell asleep on the other couch. And I had a kitchen light on, the TV was going, and I had my phone laying on top of my belly as I was laying there. So there was light in the house, and we all fell asleep. And around 2 o'clock in the morning, I started hearing my granddaughter screaming. And I opened up my eyes. The TV was off. I couldn't find my phone. They had moved it across the room. And the light in the kitchen was off. So it was pitch black because they live out in the country. So there's no street lights. And it was pitch black in the house. And I looked up, and there's an apparition over the coffee table facing my granddaughter. And I'm looking at this apparition. I couldn't find my phone because I would have taken a picture if I could have found my phone, but I couldn't find my phone. And to me, it looked like a little girl back in the Little House on the Prairie days. She had the smock on, the smock over it, the little black boots, the long hair, a little hat on. She reminded me of Little House on the Prairie. But when she turned to look at me, she had this really gruesome face. And the ends of my hair went straight up, and I stumbled through the room trying to find the light switch to turn it on. And as soon as I tripped over another coffee table and turned on the light, it was gone. And she's still sitting there screaming her head off. So I picked her up, and I could feel the electricity through my body. And that's my way of knowing when it's a dark one around. And I started calming her down, and I went through the protocol of getting rid of it. So once I cleared it, I could calm her down and get her back to sleep. And then the next day I asked her what she saw, and she's like, I didn't see anything. Gave it another day or two, and I asked her, what did you see? And she finally told me, and she described what I saw when it turned its head towards me. So they can show what they want you to see. They wanted me to think it was just a little girl, but they wanted to scare the crap out of her, because when she started screaming, that's a lower level energy. And then they were using that energy vibrational off of her.
And what do they use it for? To like attach to her, or like
to survive and to live on? Yes. Yes.
Oh, so they're like vampires.
Kind of,
So
yeah.
they're like vampires, but with lower energy.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
she would have a lot of nighttime terrors, and then I would end up clearing the house and the property and clearing her, and then I ended up doing some work on her, and things started to change for me over time. It wasn't just releasements. Then they started when I say they, or when I say us, it's always me and my team. I have a number of teams on the other side, on the spiritual side. So as things started to progress for me and things started changing, they started presenting things where I was starting to help people to heal them, to figure out what was going in their body that's allowing these attachments in, that needed to be corrected or changed or vibrationally changed within the body to prevent that. So then I started helping people that had kids that were having night terrors, and working with their spirit guides, finding out, well, do they have out of balance chakra? Do they have a blocked chakra? Do they have trapped emotions? Do they have something going on in their life that they're having a hard time dealing with, that's causing these attachments to come in during the night when they're sleeping, causing them night terrors? And then I would check the property in case there's any portals, any wormholes, any doorways that was allowing them coming in. And I would have to either close them or if it's a portal, I would have to turn it around. If it's a portal that is technically correct for the earth, I couldn't close it. I would have to just reverse it from clockwise to from counterclockwise back to clockwise. Because portals are natural in our earth. But then sometimes they open up and we shouldn't be there. Like if we have an earthquake or a tornado or electrical charge in the air, sometimes it can reverse them or open them up. So then I got to go in and find out, well, does it need to be reversed or does it need to be closed?
Wow.
And so working with the kids, correcting their whatever imbalances that needed to be corrected, they stopped having the night terrors because they weren't coming in anymore.
Wow. All right. Hold that thought. We're going to go to our commercial, but I hate to stop you here, but I want to get it in so we can come back.
Okay.
And, woo. Oh, all right. I have so many questions. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's go. We'll be right back. And just a word from our sponsor.
Has social-emotional learning become just one more thing on your teachers' plates? Do teachers and students both find it boring and ineffective? Then bring Kikori to your school. Kikori transforms classrooms through experiential SEL activities that help students play, reflect, connect, and grow. Even better, students say it's more fun than recess. Schedule a no-obligation conversation at kikoriapp.com/bringkikori. Kikori.
Do you ever feel like you can't say what you really want to say? Or that you're stuck or in a holding pattern in your relationships, career, personal life, or finances? Are there things you want in life that you've given up on? Are you resigned that this is as good as it's going to get? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then Hilary Burns, host of the Getting Real with Hilary show, has the solution you need. Hilary is a published author of 3 books and has a program called the Getting Real Process. This process frees you from what is holding you back, allowing you to create a life you love. Don't believe it? It is hard to believe that it could work, isn't it? The proof is that hundreds of Hilary's clients have used the Getting Real process and are now free to create whatever they want in relationships, career, finances, enjoying life, or just loving themselves more. So go to realtalkwithhilary.com and order Hilary's book, Real Talk, and set up a conversation.
And welcome back to the Getting Real with Hilary show. As always, thank you to our sponsor, kikoriapp.com. If you want to bring experience, I always say it wrong, experiential social emotional learning to your schools or to your business or to your teams, it really does create connections, bonding, and changes the whole emotional field of where you are. Go to kikoriapp.com and reach out to someone there. And if you find yourself not speaking up, if there's areas where you just don't want to say anything, but you think if you could, your life might be different, then connect with me. You can email me at Hilary with 1 L at gettingrealwithhilary.com. I'm just starting a course. It's called the Getting Real Process, where we get to say all those things that we don't say. And that opens up to be able to create, the life you really want. So I'd love to hear from you. And at this point, welcome back, Ellie. All right. Now, I need to ask you all this stuff with the portals and the night, how did you learn that stuff? Was that just through experience, or did you keep taking courses? Or
no, it's all personal experience, because by this point I had connected with my teams above, and
Okay.
they would guide me and help me and tell me what I need to do. And I would ask questions. I'm always asking them questions to guide me in the right directions to make sure what we're doing is correct.
And how do you connect with them? Is it just like in your head you hear them?
It's can be in my head. It can be like somebody sitting on my shoulder and I'm hearing something like out audio type thing. I can see them like sometimes. One thing that I was really big into was doing incense burning. So then you've got the smoke from the incense, and then I'd have a mirror. So there'd be smoke between the mirror and myself, and I would do meditations. And then when I came out of the meditation, I would snap pictures of the smoke, and I could start seeing spirits within the smoking. So, but
Wow.
then
So what
when I
is the
do,
smoke? How does the smoke attract the spirits?
it
Is
doesn't
that
really, it doesn't attract them. They use that smoke to kind of like outline them so you could see them.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was doing a lot of that when I first started. Now I can, if I'm giving a reading and like I'm looking at you, I can kind of see them behind you sometimes. They'll present themselves and I can see them
Now?
as you're giving. Not right now because I haven't turned myself on for that. But if I'm giving a reading and I'm working with somebody, and they just drop things in. If all of a sudden it's just like something comes into my head that is like, well, that's not my thought, and I know
Mm.
it's theirs. Um, so it everything's always changing and shifting. I can be driving down the road and all of a sudden I got this taste in my mouth of cigarette, and I've never been a smoker. So then I got to figure out, well, who owns this? It's somebody who's crossed over. So I need to
Mm.
figure out who owns it to figure out who's trying to make a connection. So there's a lot of different ways you can connect with them. Those were just a few.
Now, does that happen? I remember with this other medium, it was like, one of her things was you can set up hours. So you're open from these hours to these hours or something. Do they come through all the time, or do you have to like give them permission, or, how does it work?
I kind of, from the beginning, I never had what you would call closed hours, that only
Okay.
certain times frames for them to come through, because um, I do have my own special opening every morning that I do when I wake up to open everything up and get everything up and running again. But I don't necessarily close the door. Now, when I do like investigations, because I'm on a paranormal team, when we do investigations, I don't ask for the address. So when something comes through, I'll just notate it and see if it fits with that
Hmm.
investigation or not. And then a couple of days before the investigation, I'll ask for the address, and that's when I will actually open up the door for that investigation for things to start coming through. So I never really, like some
Now,
people
is
close the door.
this
I don't do that.
okay? So when you say investigation, like a child is murdered or like
Nope.
real life here, or is it spirit investigation?
It's in
Is it?
spirit. It's if somebody's got a problem within their house where they've got spirits in causing them problems, moving things, hurting people, they want them gone. We go in and we investigate, and the team goes in and does an investigations, and the guy who owns the team has a lot of equipment where it's taking constant pictures, it monitors everything we do. We've got lights that go on and off and things like that. And then what happens at the end, if they want those entities gone, I will actually clear the property and the house and everybody that lives in that house. I'll clear it once the investigation is complete. So
Now,
some people want,
is this like an like a human team? Are
yeah,
these other
yeah,
humans? Okay. Okay.
yeah.
I don't,
It's an actual team of people. We all have
okay, real
different.
people, not spirits. Okay, just
Yep,
checking.
yep.
And then you're the one that can clear it. Can others clear it too? Or you're the special?
There is someone else on the team that clears it, but she's just learning how to do it. So
Okay.
she doesn't really, she's better at some things than I am. And so she kind of handles that stuff. And I handle certain things. And then the clearing at the end, if they want the attachments or the entities gone, then I do the clearing.
And people pay you that they pay you for that, right?
They pay me if they call me up and ask me to do it. If they go through the investigative team, that's a free service.
Oh.
So so I'm actually working for that team, and that's my service for the team to help people out. Yes.
Wow. Cool. Okay. All right. Wow. All right. So what's another good story? And then we'll get into like how people can find you and stuff like that. Or a couple good stories.
Okay, so another good story is that there's a gentleman that was driving home from work. He had really extremely long hours, and he had it was a job that was not treating him well. So he was having a lot of things going on, and he was driving home, and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. He'd get home, only get a couple of hours of sleep, and he was up and gone again for the day. So he'd gone like 20 hours a day. As he's driving home, like midnight, 2 a.m., whatever it was, he heard this thing like on his shoulder, like, oh, it's okay. Go ahead and drive off the bridge. Nobody's going to miss you. Nobody loves you. You're okay. Just go ahead and do it. Come join us. You're fine. And he started freaking out. He got over the bridge, pulled his car over, got out, walked around the car, felt better, got back in the car, and he started driving again. Well, he was on the interstate, so he's coming up to another bridge. And sure enough, he heard that voice again saying, nobody loves you. Just go ahead and drive off the bridge. It's okay. Nobody wants you. Nobody's going to miss you. So after that, after he got over that bridge, he started taking back roads home. So he wasn't going over bridges.
Okay.
He got a hold of me, and we're talking, and he had a very dark attachment. So I ended up clearing the attachment, but then I also had to do healing work on him to prevent him from getting more attachments. So a lot of people don't realize is that attachments come in various different levels. Sometimes they're just mischievous. Sometimes they don't do anything. They just use your energy. They just want to survive. And sometimes they're very, very dark, and they can try to talk you into things. They can actually know what you're thinking without you thinking it. So it's there's just all different levels of attachments out there. Another story would be is there's a female who went through breast cancer. She chose to go through the chemo, and she did have a couple radiations, and then a complete rebuild of her breast, which doctors have their place. That's okay. I'm all right with that. But I would be working on her along in tandem with the doctors. The doctors didn't know, but I'd be working on her. At this point, I was also doing other modalities of healing of people. She came home from her chemo treatment one day and said, she called me up and said, my white blood cells dropped. The doctors told me if they drop next time I go in for chemo treatment, he's not going to do the chemo treatment. I want to get this over with. I want to get through this. I want my life back. What can you do with my white blood cells? So I sat down and dissected a white blood cells, working with my spirit team, and got all the intricate parts of the white blood cells. They told me which one needed to be worked on. So I took that one part of the white blood cell and went from whatever percent happy it was up to 100% happy, put it back within the cell, worked on the white blood cell as a whole, getting it up to 100% happy. When she went in for her next treatment, not only did her white blood numbers stabilize, they went up for her. So she could continue on with her chemo treatments. With chemo treatments, a lot of times it will cause severe pain in the bones because it gets caught in the bones. So I was working with her on as far as I would do Reiki on her. I would do body code on her, releasing whatever the bones were willing to release, and working on the bones to heal the bones so they wouldn't hang on to that. Her pain was never as bad as what most people go through. She had a little bit here and there, but it was not near as bad as what a lot of people go through when they go through chemo.
Wow.
And then for her surgery, she had to go in on Monday morning for her surgery. She came out Friday night. So when she went to the hospital in the morning, I checked to make sure I cleared the property, cleared out everybody that worked at the property, anybody that was walking in and out of it, made sure she was clear, made sure the doctor had a protective shield around it so it would not have any problems or issues when it was working on her or doing the surgery on her, because she had a 12-hour surgery. So I got everything all set up and running for her. And then I sat down to start working on my computer and stuff. And when the computer shut down, that was Spirit's way of telling me I needed to clear the property again. So I would sit down and clear the property and the people and the buildings and clear everything out. And then she spent from Monday morning to Friday night. So there were times in the middle of the night my music would go off on the computer for no reason. Nobody else in the house would hear it. And I would get up and know something needed to be cleared. So we would continue to re-clear everything again. So when she came home on Friday, she told me, she said, the doctor couldn't believe how I'm not black and blue. And it's like, that's because you were being worked on this entire week while you were in there through the surgeries, and that helped you out. So energy healing can do phenomenal work, and people don't realize it.
Now you don't have to be with them, right? You're doing this like virtually.
Yes, it's all long distance. And I don't have to have somebody sitting in front of me like I have you here right now to work on somebody. I've got clients that will send me information, ask me to work on them. They'll tell me what's going on. And I just sit down and do the work and send them the report.
Now, do you need the person's permission to do it?
When I'm working with an attachment or an entity, I'm not actually working on the person. I'm working on the entity and attachment. So I don't need the person's permission to do that work. But if I'm doing energetic healing on somebody, like if I were to do some work on you, I would need your permission. Yes.
Okay.
Because then I'm working directly on you and not an attachment. So for an individual person, I need the permission. Kids, I'll work on kids up till about the age of 14, 15, 16 through the mother or the father. But then at some point, they're starting to take ownership of being an adult. And I prefer to get it from them along with the parent.
So if somebody has cancer, for example, you're not actually healing the cancer, you're healing the energy and the attachments that might be causing it.
Yes.
Is that right?
What doctors work on are the symptoms. They don't look at the body as to what caused the body to go astray that caused the issue. Whereas with the energy work, we're actually digging down in to find out what caused the body to go astray that caused the issue. So I'm not working with, I'm including the symptom because I don't say, well, she's got cancer, we got to work on cancer. I'm working down below that.
Right.
Figuring out what started it.
Yeah. And if you do that, does that clear the cancer? If you find the source of it?
I never tell anybody don't go to the doctor. I always say you need to go to the doctor. You still need to follow your doctor's protocol because the two work together really well. And it's up to the individual person. The people I've always worked on still have the relationship with their doctor. And they go back and forth between them and me. So they're getting both all the time. But I have heard of people who have done energy work on themselves and the cancer disappears. But I can't say yes, it will, because I don't know.
But it could.
It could. If somebody had the knowledge of what to do, very well likely, yes.
Wow.
But I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I always tell my clients.
Right, no. I'm not asking for a promise. I'm just saying, like, could it?
It's possible. I actually worked on somebody that had AFib. And he had gone into his doctor to have his heart shocked twice, but it didn't work. And then I started doing some sessions on him. Well, his doctor was at the point the doctor wanted to put a stent in the heart. And I was doing a number of sessions with his higher self, working with him, clearing the underlying reasons as to what caused the heart to go AFib. And his doctor said, we really need to set up and put a stent in. And I said, you know what? Ask your doctor for one more shock. And then you'd agree to the stent if it had to be. But just ask him for one more shock, because they're telling me that's what you need. So he asked his doctor, and his doctor said, that's reasonable. Let's do the shock. So he did a shock, and his heart's still in play. It didn't go back out.
Wow.
So it was releasing of that underneath energy that was causing the issues and the problems. Now, he still needed Western medicine to put that shock into play. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have a stent in his heart.
Wow. Amazing. All right. Well, this has been so fascinating. I want to make sure I always run out of time because I love to hear people talk, but let's make sure we get how people reach you, what they can get from you. I know you have Ellie Weisensel at gmail.com, and that's ELLIE and then WEISENSEL at gmail.com. And is that the easiest way to find you, or should they go to the website?
They can go to the website. They're going to find a lot more information on me on the website. And on the website, there's also a spot where they could send me an email notice as to wanting to talk.
And the website, so the website is ellieweisensel.wix, W-I-X, site.com/E as in Edward, W, P as in Peter, M.
Correct.
And we'll have that in the notes in case you're having trouble spelling it. And then Ellie, why don't you tell them about your offer for people who have heard the show?
Okay. I actually have on my website a 20-minute freebie offer to sit down and talk in case you're looking more of the healing side, the energetic healing side. If you've got a health issue going on, I offer anybody and everybody a 20-minute session to sit down and talk to see what's going on and how I can best help you. The offer I'm offering here today for Hilary is I do what's called a heart wall releasement. It's normally a $40 for a heart wall releasement. And if you use the code Hilary, I will only charge $25 for that heart wall releasement. So you can still send me an email, and in the email say code Hilary and then heart wall releasement, and we can set up a date and time, and I can do that for you.
And can you tell them what that does? I mean, I've had it done, but I don't think I could explain it. Can you just say it in a few words?
What it is usually something happens in our life that, like when I went through my divorce, I swore I never wanted to feel those pains again. And I started building a wall around my heart to protect my heart because I didn't want to have all that pain again. But when you build that wall, you also prevent all the good stuff from coming in. You also prevent not feeling joy and happiness and peace and all that stuff, because that wall is blocking everything, the good and the bad. So by releasing that wall, you will feel lighter, you'll be happier, you'll feel joy, you'll feel the love again, and it just kind of turns things around a little bit for you.
Wow. I think that's a great deal for $25. Sign me up. This show cost me a lot of money. I sign up for everybody's stuff. So anyway, wow, that sounds so cool. All right. So Ellie, what would you like to leave people with in terms of, like, you know, how would you see the world in 5 years? What is the impact you want to make? You know, stuff like that.
The world right now is going through a really tremendous time, but it's also, even though it looks really ugly out there, it is going through through a phase where when we come out of it, everything is going to be so much better. You're going to see people changing and people being happy again, and it's the world is shifting. People are shifting. People are starting to see things they never saw before. They're opening up their eyes. They're starting to realize that everything's not just black and white. You got shades of gray. What I was told, what I was here for on this earth was to help people. And by releasing attachments, that helps people, that gives them their lives back. By helping with the any aches and pains that's going on in your life, that is giving you a better life to live. And so I was told my reason I came back this time for this lifetime was to help people, and not just people. I also help a lot of animals with what they go through. So that's kind of where I'm at, in the direction I am is helping people the best I can. When I do paranormal teamwork, it's helping people. It's when I'm doing healing, the energetic healing, it's helping people. When I'm working with my teams on the other side for people, it's helping people. So it's helping, hoping to help bring more love and joy into the world and to help it along the path of the direction it's going on.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Ellie. I really appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate what you're doing for people and being willing to talk about it and, do it, even though, at one time, I don't think that was really accepted. And I think the way you talk about it is just matter of fact. Hey, this is what I'm doing, and it's helping people. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me be on the show and to have another avenue of getting out there for people to know that there's help out there. It's just having sometimes to try to find it.
Right. Exactly. And who would have known? And so, yeah. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. I started getting real with Hilary when I discovered that I was a people-pleasing, pleasant phony and wanted to be more of my real self. We can grow together if you will like the show, subscribe to my channel, and share this episode with your friends and family so that we can have a world that's more real.